Sairam students, welcome to the fifth session of chapter 3, that is properties of natural resources. So students, in the last session we were discussing about the properties of soil. So before going to the next part, let's revise what we had discussed in the last session. So in the last session, children, we had learnt that the important property of the soil is its color. So the soil, it gets its color because of the several processes, and the soil, it is darker near the land. Then we saw that soil, it has got various colors like black, red, copper, yellow and grey. Now, the color of the soil, it is useful for classification, as well as it is indirectly useful for indicating the several properties of the land. Now, the properties such as fertility, drainage of water, capacity to hold the water. So, these all properties, it depends upon the color of the soil. Then we saw that the color of the soil, it also depends upon the texture, the organic ingredients and the chemical ingredients which are present in it. So then we saw about the three types of the soil, that is the sandy soil, silt soil and the clay soil. After that, we saw about the soil structure. So the soil structure, it also depends upon the different shapes of the particles in it. And then lastly, we saw about the importance of the soil structure. So the fertility of the soil, it depends upon the soil structure. And then we saw about the the advantages of the good soil. So this was what we had learnt in the last session. So children, in the today's session, we are going to see about the uses of the soil. Uses of soil, it is plant conservation, water conservation and plasticity. So the uses of the soil is plant conservation, water conservation and plasticity. So we'll see all these uses one by one. So first is plant conservation. So what is there in plant conservation? It helps the plants to grow. So because of the soil, it helps the plants to grow. And water conservation, what happens? The soil, it holds water. So what happens? Since the soil holds water, by means of bunds and lakes, we can get water for use throughout the year. Right children? So because the soil, it holds water, by means of bunds and lakes, we can get water for use throughout the year. Plasticity. The soil, it can be given any required shape. So this property of the soil is called as plasticity. So the soil, it can be used to make articles of variety of shapes. But whenever any item is prepared from the soil, it is then baked and then it is made hard. So the articles, they are baked to make them hard. Like example is water storage earthen pots, earthen lamps, idols, bricks, etc. So these are the articles which are made from the soil. So in plasticity, what we have seen, that soil, it can be given any required shape. So because of this property of the soil, it is called as plasticity. So soil, it can be used to make various articles, and of different shapes we can make the articles. So these articles, they are baked to make them hard. And baked means they are put in a they are heated and then they are made hard. So the examples are water storage earthen pots, earthen lamps, idols, bricks, etc. So let's move to the next part. Some useful types of soil. So here there are 4 useful types of soil which we are going to discuss. One is china clay, second is shadu soil, third is terracotta soil, and fourth is multani soil. So we are going to see four useful types of soil. First is china clay, second is shadu soil, third is terracotta soil, and fourth is multani soil. So let us see all these four in detail. So you can see here, children, these are the articles which are made from soil, right? You can see here, these are the bricks over here. This is your pot, which is where the plants can be grown. This cookware, it is used in cooking, and these are the crockery items. So all these are made from the soil. China clay is an industrial mineral of the type kaolinite. Now since it is found in China, it is called as China clay. On heating this soil, it acquires a glaze. Glaze means it acquires a shine and hardness, and that's the reason it is used for making crockery. So China clay, it is an industrial mineral of the type kaolinite. Since it is found in China, that's why it is called as China clay. And then on heating this soil, it acquires a glaze and hardness, and because of that it is used for making crockery. This China clay, it is white in color, and it is used to make crockery, bathroom tiles, tanks, laboratory, apparatus, masks, and jars. So China clay, it is white in color, and it is used to make crockery, bathroom tiles, tanks, laboratory apparatus, masks, jars, etc. Next is your shadu soil. It is whitish in color, and because of that it is used for making statues and idols. So shadu soil, it is whitish in color, and that's the reason it is used for making statues and idols. Next is your terracotta soil. Now terracotta soil, it is red in color, and that's the reason the decorative articles and pots are made from this soil, right? The pots in which we grow the plants. So terracotta soil, it is red in color, and because of that the decorative articles and the pots are made from this terracotta soil. Pots are those in which we grow the plants. Next is your multani soil. Now multani soil, this is used in mostly cosmetics. So multani soil, it is used in cosmetics. Now we are going to see about the soil testing. So how is the soil testing done? So the proportion of various ingredients in the soil is determined by soil testing. So as I told you, in the soil there are different particles. So these particles, some are large in size and some are small in size. So also it contains organic ingredients as well as the chemical ingredients. So what is the proportion in that soil? That is determined by the soil testing. So what happens in the testing? What can you find out in testing? You can examine its color, texture, and the proportion of the organic matter present in it. So during testing, what all things can you find out? You can find out the color of the soil, the texture of the soil, and the proportion of the organic matter present in it. So soil testing, it is done to find out the proportion of the various ingredients present in the soil, and by testing you can find out the color, the texture, and the proportion of the organic matter present in the soil. Soil testing, it is also done to find out the deficiency of any ingredient. Deficiency of any ingredient means we have already seen that it contains organic ingredients as well as chemical ingredients. So if there is deficiency in any of these ingredients, then we can find out this by soil testing. And if they find out any deficiency, then what measures should we take to remove that deficiency? For that also this soil testing is done. So children, in the soil testing, the proportion of the various ingredients can be found out. Then you can find out the color, the texture, and the proportion of the organic matter. Also we can find out if there is any deficiency of any ingredient, and if any deficiency is found, what measures or what steps you will take to remove that deficiency. Now, how is this testing done? The soil sample, it is collected first, and then it is dried in an open space in the shade for 8 to 10 days. After it is dried for 8 to 10 days, it is sifted through a sieve. Sifted through a sieve means it is like if any coarse particles are present in it, that is separated. So for testing the soil sample, what is done, it is for the sample is collected and then it is dried in the open space in the shade for 8 to 10 days. So after 8 to 10 days, it is then passed through a sieve. So as I told you, it is sifted through a sieve means the coarse particles which are present in it, that is removed. Now you have seen when we take this wheat flour, so what do? You sift it through a sieve. The flour part which is there, it comes down, and whatever the coarse particles which are there, it will remain in the sieve. Sieve means in it is also called as your chalni. So now with the soil testing, actually the pH and the electrical conductivity test, these are useful for finding out the characteristics of the soil. So if you want to find out the soil characteristics, then pH and electrical conductivity tests, these are the two major tests by which you can find out the characteristics of the soil. Also you can find out the fertility of the soil, but there are different tests for it. So pH and electrical conductivity tests, these are the two main tests for finding out the characteristic of the soil. Also the fertility of the soil, you can also find it out, but by different tests. So the Danish scientist Sorensen, he put forward the concept of pH based on the concentration of hydrogen ions. Now pH means, children, it is power of hydrogen or potential of hydrogen. That is the full form of pH. So now this pH, with this pH you can find out whether the soil is acidic or it is alkaline. So this pH, it has got a scale. The scale is from 0 to 14. Right children? So if you want to find out the pH of the soil, then what are you going to do? You are going to take the mixture of water and soil in the proportion 1:2, and you are going to test it using several indicators. Now there are different indicators, for example phenolphthalein. So many indicators can be used to find out the pH of the soil. So there was a scientist Sorensen who put forward this concept of pH, which is based on the concentration of hydrogen ions. So the pH of the soil, it can be determined by taking the mixture of water in the proportion of 1:2, and then you have to test it using several indicators. So the soil, according to that, the soil, it can be found of three types. So if that is an acidic soil, then its pH will be less than 6.5. If it is a neutral soil, then its pH should be 6.5 to 7.5. And if it is an alkaline soil, then the pH should be higher than 7.5. So the soil, according to the pH, it is of three types. Acidic soil, the pH should be less than 6.5, and if it is a neutral soil, then its pH will be 6.5 to 7.5, and if it's an alkaline soil, then its pH will be higher than 7.5. Now what are the causes of diminished soil fertility. Diminish means decrease. So how is the if the soil fertility it is decreased, what are the causes for the decrease soil fertility? So if the soil pH it is less than 6 or higher than 8, so then there will be decreased fertility. Low proportion of organic matter means if the organic matter it is in less proportion, then also there will be decreased soil fertility. There is no proper drainage of water. That means the water, if it does not flow away properly. Repeated cultivation of the same crop. Repeated cultivation means if you are cultivating wheat, again you should not take wheat. So if you again and again take wheat, then the soil fertility will decrease. Continuous use of saline water. Now saline water means it is a mixture of water and salt. So if you use it continuously, then also it will be a problem. And excessive use of chemical fertilizers and pesticides. If you use pesticides and chemical fertilizers in excess quantity, then also the soil fertility will be decreased. So what are the causes of diminished soil fertility? So diminished means decrease. How the soil fertility is decreased? So if the soil pH it is less than 6 or it is higher than 8, then you will have a decreased soil fertility. If there is low proportion of organic matter, so if the organic matter it is present in less quantity. No proper drainage of water. The water which is there, if it doesn't flow away easily, so then it will again have a decreased soil fertility. Repeated cultivation of the same crop. Again and again if you cultivate the same crop, suppose if you take wheat and again once the wheat crop has been taken out and again you will cultivate wheat, then again you will have a decreased soil fertility. Continuous use of saline water. Now saline water if you use it continuously, then also there will be a decreased soil fertility. So saline water means it's a mixture of salt plus water. And if there is excessive use of chemical fertilizers and pesticides, so chemical fertilizers and pesticides if you use in more quantity, excess quantity, then also you will have diminished soil fertility. So the crops for so if you want to increase your soil fertility, what you should do? The crops, it should be rotated in order to maintain the fertility of the land. So if you want your land to be fertile, the crops, it should be rotated in order. So for example, the fertility of the land, it decreases after harvesting of wheat. So as I told you, when you take the cultivation of the crop wheat, then what you have to do? You have to take the second cultivation for leguminous crops like peanut, moong, moth bean, pea, lentil, bengal gram, soya bean. These all should be cultivated so that the fertility of the soil it can remain as it is or it can increase, right children? So what you should do to maintain the fertility of the land, the crops it should be rotated. If you are taking cultivating wheat, so next time when you are harvesting, you will take the leguminous cultivation of the leguminous crops like peanut, moong, moth bean, pea, lentil, bengal gram, soya bean. So by taking this, the fertility of the soil can be restored. So with this students, we finish our third chapter, that is the properties of natural resources. So let's recap what we have learnt in today's session. So in today's session children, first we saw about the uses of soil. So in the uses of soil, we saw about the plant conservation, water conservation and plasticity. After that, we saw about some useful types of soil, that is china clay, shadu soil, terracotta soil and your multani soil. After that we saw about the soil testing, how soil testing is done and what all things can we find out by doing the soil testing. Then we saw about the great scientist Sorensen, who found out the pH concept, and then we can find out the pH of the soil, right? So there are for acidic it is pH less than 6.5. For neutral the pH should be between 6.5 to 7.5, and alkaline the pH should be higher than 5. Then we saw about the causes of the diminished soil fertility. So students, I hope you have understood this chapter. There is a link being given for the worksheet to be solved. Please solve it time to time. So till then, meet you in the next session. Goodbye.